Hello and welcome to Minukuu tutorials. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to replace specific data values including missing values in R or RStudio. So basically our tutorial is going to cover replacement of a specific data unit, or if you want specific data value, by a particular value of our choice. Okay, and it could be that, for instance, the specific data unit of our choice, we just want to replace it by a different value. For instance, for corrective purposes, let's assume that we entered patient's age as 25, but later discovered that the patient is actually 30 years old. So you may want to replace 25 by what? 30. This single replacement. Okay, it could also be that the patient's age was not even known, but we got to know that the patient is actually 30 years old. So we want to replace the missing age value by what? 30. This is very possible, and I'll show you how. The tutorial is also going to cover replacement of missing values or even specific data values within a particular column. So for instance, we could instruct R to replace all missing values for age by the average age of the group. Okay, so we could decide that, okay, since we don't know the age of certain individuals, we're going to replace their ages by the average age or the mean age of the whole group. Okay, and we could just simply do this replacement. Better still, we could instruct R to do the replacement based on certain conditions. So let's assume that we want to tell R that if the patient's weight is greater than 25, R should put 30, probably for corrective measures. Okay, probably the scale that we use in weighing the patients was not very good, so we've decided that, okay, we have to add +5 to all patient ages. So if the patient weighs 25, greater than 25, R should put 30. This is an instruction. I will be able to do this. Okay, but now you ask me, what if the variable is categorical? For instance, it's not just about weight, age, but it's probably about gender, male or female. Now in this case, the replacement will be different. Okay, but I will still show you how you still be able to replace all missing values by a particular value of your choice if the variable is categorical, or you could choose to replace specific data values of a categorical variable by any value of your choice. For instance, if I entered the patient's gender as female, but later discovered that the patient is actually male, and I want to replace male by female, I could do that. If I also want to replace, if probably the gender of the patient was not known, so there was a missing value, and I want to now enter, now I know the gender of the patient, and I want to put it there, maybe it's a female, and I want to replace the missing value by female, I could also do that. The last thing that we are going to cover is replacement that has to do with the entire data set. So we could instruct R that for all missing values or NAs, kindly put 30, or put the mean, or whatever, put the minimum, put the average, whatever, the maximum. All these are possibilities. Okay, so we're going to cover all these different scenarios. Now I have my data set on my desktop. Let me show you. It's right here. It's a CSV file, and I'll read it into R for us to start. So basically, to read data set into R, please read your data set into R in your own way. There's no need to do exactly what I'm doing. Okay, the method that you are used to, kindly use that. Okay, so for me to read this particular CSV file into R, I'll simply right click on it, click on properties, click on security, and then I'll copy the full file path here. Okay, just click OK, and then I'll come to my R and come and say read.csv, but I'll actually name my data set data with capital D. So I'll say data is equal to or less than, and then hyphen, is equal to read .csv, sorry, read .csv into brackets, then into quotations. I'll paste the file path that I just copied, or the file extension that I copied earlier on. I use Ctrl V to paste, and then I will simply remove the backslashes and put forward slashes. Whichever way you read your dataset into R, please do that. This is not the purpose of our tutorial. If you have difficulties in reading dataset into R, kindly check in my channel. I have several videos that cover this. So I'll read my dataset into R. Okay, perfectly well. It hasn't given us any error. I mean, the dataset is well read. And to view the content of the data, simply say print into brackets data. Let's run this. And here's our data set. Okay, so let's assume it's a data set of what, 14 patients. So we have the patient ID, the gender, the age, the weight, and then the status, right? And you notice that we have missing values for age, and you notice that for missing values for age, R actually, let's say, let me put it this way. When you read dataset into R, R usually replaces numeric missing values by NAs. Okay, numeric missing values like age, weight, those are numeric. Okay, so you will notice that all numeric missing values are actually replaced by what? NAs. But when it comes to categorical missing values, okay, in other words, qualitative data like status, positive or negative, gender, male or female, when there is a missing value, R puts space. R doesn't put anything there. So this is one important thing that you have to note, because they will be very, very important in doing the replacement. Now, having said this, let's move on to our let's move on to the purpose of our tutorial. So after we've imported the dataset into R, we'll try to replace single values, okay, as I said earlier on. So let's assume that for patient number 4, we want to replace his age by 25. So it's just correction that we want to do. Initially we entered the patient's age as 15, but we later discovered that the patient is actually what, 25. So how do we do this? It's important to note that this particular cell, okay, though we are not working in a spreadsheet, I'm assuming this is a cell, okay. This particular cell corresponds to what? Row number 4, and then column number what? 3. Row number 4, that's patient number 4, and then column number what? 3, which is what? Age. So the coordinate for this particular individual within our data set is what? 4, 3. Row number 3, sorry, row number 4, column number what? 3. So this is very, very important. So if I want to redo the replacement, I simply say what? Replace. There are different methods of doing it, okay? There are different ways of doing a replacement, but the simplest method that I'm going to show you will be using the square brackets, okay? So I will say, for instance, patient, our data, our, what do we call it? Remember, we named our data set data with capital D. So I'll write data here, D, then I'll use data this way, and I'll use the square brackets, okay, to select the column of my choice and then the row of my choice. In other words, I'm going to select the specific cell of my choice. So I'm to select patient number 4, column number 3. I'm to do the replacement for this particular value, this particular cell. So like I said, I'll put 4, row number 4, column number 3. Now close the square brackets, okay, and then I will use less than or equal to, sorry, I said less than or equal to, less than and then hyphen, okay? Or you could put equal to. If you don't want to put less than a hyphen, you could just put equal to, and then you put the specific data, the specific number that you want to use to do the replacement. So we want to replace it by 25, so I just put 25. So we are instructing R that within our data set, for column, for the particular data value which corresponds to row number 4 and column number 3, which is actually 15, replace 15 by what? 25. That's what I've just said here. So if I should run this, I will do the replacement. Okay, and now if I should print our data set again, you realize that for this particular patient number 4, R has actually replaced its age by what? 25, as you can see. Now, as I was telling you, it could be that we also want to replace a single missing value. Okay, so sometimes the replacement is not just about correction of values, but it could be that we just want to replace a particular missing value. And what is the missing value within this particular column? We've noticed that, okay, let's use a different column to do the replacement, so you see how it will work. Okay, I just want to jump from one column to the other just to be versatile. So let's assume we want to replace. You notice that for the variable weight, the weight of patient number 5 is actually missing. So how do we replace it? By something else. So you could replace it by anything. So it could be that this value was not known, okay, but we just got to realize that the patient's weight is actually 30, and we want to replace the patient's weight by 30. How do we do that? It's very simple, right? So to replace the patient weight by 30, patient number 5's weight by 30, is a similar procedure. You simply have to say this particular missing value corresponds to row number 5, and then column number what? 4. This 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth column. So it's now 5 what? 4. So we instruct R that within our data set data, we use the square brackets 5, row number 5, column number 4, kindly replace it by what? Let's say 25 or 30. So we say less than and then hyphen, sorry, less than and hyphen, we put 25 or 30 if that's what we want. And if we run this, R will actually replace the missing value that it initially kept NA. It will now replace it by what? 30. Let's print our data set, and you see that for this particular patient number 5, his weight is now what? Or her weight is now 30. R has actually done the replacement of this particular missing value. Now let's move on to the next thing. It could be that we are interested in replacing this particular value by, let's say, the mean. Okay, the mean weight. So to do this, let me show you how. It's very, very simple. I want to do away with all the changes that I've done so far, so I'll just reload my data set. Okay, so I'll reload the data set as if I was reading the data set for the first time, so that it will do away with all the changes. So you see that all the missing values are back. Okay, and I'll now do something else. Now this time around, we want to replace, for instance, we want to instruct R to replace, let's say, the age of patient number 5, or the weight of patient number 5, we should replace it by what? The average weight of the group. Okay, so we will calculate the weight of all the individuals, or if you want, the weight of all the patients, and we will actually use this particular average weight, the average weight of all the patients, and we actually use this particular average weight to replace any missing value of our choice. For example, we could choose to replace the weight of patient number 5 by the average weight of all the patients. So to do this is very, very simple. Okay, we simply say, instead of replacing by 30 here, we simply say what? Replace by, remember this corresponds to row number 5 and column number 4 for weight. So we say replace it by what? The mean. So we say mean instead of writing 30 as we enter, now we want to replace it by the mean. So we just say you have the choice. You could calculate the mean and now you use the mean value to put here, or you simply put the formula for calculating mean, which is mean into brackets what, the particular column in question. So to select our column, you use data, which is our data. We use the $sign to select the column of interest, which is what, weight, right? A particular column of our interest is weight here. So this I've selected, want to calculate the mean weight of what, all the patients. However, you notice that there are what, NAs here. So since there are NAs, if I should run this code, it will give me an error because R will notice that there are missing values and it will not be able to do the calculation. If you want, let's try it. So if I should run this, I said what, mean into brackets data $weight. Actually R did not give me an error, but this is because let's try to print our data set and see what R will give us. Let's print our data set. So when I printed my data set, you realize that R did not do the replacement. Why? Because there are NAs, R could not actually calculate the weight. You understand? If you want, let's put it, let me do it separately. Okay, so let's assume that we're trying to calculate, I'll just copy this and put it down here. Let's assume that we're trying to calculate the mean of, okay, let's assume that we're trying to calculate the mean of the weight. You see that R gave me NA, not applicable. Why? Because there are missing values here. So, and that's why when we did the replacement by the mean, R did not mind us because it could not calculate the mean. So now to prevent this, you are supposed to put what? You put comma here, okay, put comma, and then you say na.remove na.rm, which means na.remove is equal to true. We are telling R to remove all NAs in order to be able to calculate our mean for us. So now if I run this, you see R has given the mean to be what? 29.08333. And now we can simply rewrite this and say it's equal to this particular value, or we simply put comma here within our formula here. Let's put comma here and also say na.remove is equal to what? True. Now if I should run this, and now if I should print my data set, you realize that R has actually replaced for patient number 5 its weight by the mean. Let's do that. You see what I'm saying? Look at patient number 5. It has actually replaced its weight by the mean. So this is perfectly well. So I think this is done. And now we look at replacement of a specific data value when the variable is categorical. Okay, so let's say status. So now status here is what? Categorical. How do we replace? And I told you earlier on that you realize that for missing values of categorical variables, R puts space. So when you see space here, it means this value is missing. How do we replace it? Let's assume that we've just discovered that patient number 3, its status is positive. So how do we put positive here? It's very, very simple. Patient number 3, column number what? 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Patient number 3, column number 5. So it's 3, 5 combination. So we just say data, we use a square brackets, and then we say what? 3, 5. We want to replace this particular missing value by positive. That is his test results is actually positive. So you simply put less than, sorry, or you could put equal to. it's just say less than, and then hyphen stands for equal to, you just put the equal sign, is the same. And now we want to replace it by what? Positive. The data value that we want to put here is now positive. But note that since positive is, these are letters, these are characters and not just numbers, we have to put it in quotations. So we write quotations, then we write positive. Positive if you're American. Okay, and then, sorry, why did I put a square? Well, okay, now if I should run this, you realize that this missing value here will now be what? Positive. Let's run it. And now if I should print my data set once again, you see that R actually, for patient number 3, R has now kept what? Positive. Now let's move on to the next type of replacement that we can do. Okay, so anything at all that has to do with single replacement, I think we have closed that chapter. Let's move on to something else. So maybe I should put here single replacement. This is what we've covered. We just covered single replacement. Single replacements, or single replacement. Okay, so we are done with that. All the different types of single replacement, I think I've covered that. Now let's move on to replacing, let's say, several values or missing values in a particular column. Okay, so this one is about replacing several values or missing values within a particular column. So replacing several values or missing values within a particular column or variable column. Now the question is, once again, is this particular column a numeric or a categorical variable? And as usual, if I want to do away with all the changes, I will just simply read my data set into R once again. Okay, because in order to make do with all the changes that I've done to it, and we can start with this new topic, which has to do with replacement of values or missing value within a particular column. So let's read our data set once again to R to do away with all the changes that we've done earlier on. And just to remind you, at the end of the day, after you have done all these replacements, if you are interested in saving your final data set into Excel or CSV format, please look right below in the description box and you see one of my videos on how to export data into text or CSV format from R. If I forget to put it in the description box, don't hesitate to browse through my channel. You'll see this particular video that I'm talking about, but I'll make sure I do what I've just said. Now, to do replacement within a particular column, there are several ways as usual, but the method that I prefer using is if-else. Okay, so if-else is simply based on condition. So if this, put this, else put that. Okay, so let's assume that now let's print our data set again just to show you what it is. This is actually our data set, as you can see, and then we can instruct R that for a particular column. So let's start with, let's say we could instruct R that for all patients with weight greater than, so we try with, as usual, we start with, first of all, values that are not missing, but now we have to do the replacement based on a certain condition. Maybe we just want to do some correction that all patients with their weight greater than 25, R should put 30. Maybe our scale was not very good. We want to do this correction. And after which I will show you how we can do missing values replacement within a particular column, whether or not the variable is categorical like status or is simply numeric. So let's start with the first condition, which is what? By instructing R to replace, for instance, all patients with their ages greater than 25 by 30. How do we do that? Or let's say the weight of all patients greater than 30, let's put greater than 25, let's put 30. How do we do that? So to do this within this particular column, which is weight, so how do we do that? So we simply say dataset, which is our dataset, I named it data, $ to select the column of interest. Our column of interest is what? Weight. Okay, and then we will say it's equal to or less than, and then this, the hyphen, okay, to say equal to. Then we say if else it's written this way. Then we put into brackets, let's specify the condition. So the condition is that if the patient's weight, so we have to quote the variable again that we are selecting is weight. So data, we are selecting weight, $ weight. If the weight of the patient is greater than, so we put greater than here, is greater than 25, okay, then we put comma, and we put what we want R to do. R should put 30. Else, what should R do? If the patient's weight is greater than 30, is greater than 25, put 30. If not, we may put a different condition, but we would say, in my case, I would say, if that's not the case, just leave the value the way it is. So if not, just keep the data, the data value for weight as it is. So say, if not, put what? Data $ weight. You could write conditions of your choice. For instance, I could have said, if the patient's weight is greater than this, and if you want to use and, you simply put this and here, the and, this one. Oh, why do I put this particular sign here? And then you write the next condition. So I could say, and maybe the patient's age is equal to something. Then I'll say maybe data $ age is maybe equal to 17. R should put 30. If not, put this. So if you want to use or, then you put this particular sign here. Or how do we put or? I'm looking for the sign for you, please. Okay, it's here. This one here. This for or, and you put this. Sorry, you put this one here. So these are, but that's not the purpose. I just want, let's keep it as simple as possible, but I just wanted you to know that you can write more complicated conditions, okay, with the help of the if else command. So we are saying that if the patient's weight is greater than 25, R should put 30. If not, it should maintain the initial weight value. So notice that which are the patients with body weight greater than 25. We have patient number 2 is 27. Patient number 3 is 28. Patient number 11 too. So R will actually put 30 for all these individuals. So let's do the replacement quickly. If I should run this, let's print our data set and you see what R has done. So you see that R actually kept 30 for patient number 2, 30 here. You know, this one was 40 if I remember. It has now kept what? 30. This is what I'm talking about, the replacement. Now let's move on to the next thing. The next thing that we will do has to do with missing values. Okay, now with missing values, it's quite different. Okay, it's just the same, but it's the same condition, but so for missing values, let's use a different variable. So as usual, I'll read my data set once again in order to make do with the changes that we've done to it, so that we can do our new changes. Okay, if you are working, you don't have to do this all the times, you understand, because once you reload your data set to R, you have erased all the initial changes and you have read your data. It's just like you have just read the data set to your R afresh. So if you are actually working, you don't have to repeat what I'm doing, because anytime you repeat what if you try to reload the data set to R again, you do away with the changes. You keep repeating the same thing. I do this because I want to show you the new procedure, or the new replacement. So I try to make do with the changes, but you may not want to make do with your changes. Okay, so with that said, let's move on. And now we want to replace, let's say, missing values. So for missing values, let's pick, for instance, age. Okay, we want to instruct R that for all patients with missing values, R should put a particular value of our choice. Let's say if the patient's age is missing, R should put a mean, or if the patient's age is missing, R should put something else. So this has to do with just this column, and it's very, very simple. Okay, so we simply say, once again, simply say data. So this is about missing value, replacing missing value. So we say data here, then we use the $ to select age, which is the variable of interest, less than, and then hyphen, equal to, if else, into brackets, the age is missing. So how do we say the age is a missing value? Since age is numeric, we will say is NA, because R usually represent missing values by what? NA. So we say is dot NA into brackets data $age. Okay, so if it is an NA, okay, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm telling R that if that's what NA, R usually represent missing values by NA. So I'm telling R that if a particular value within the age column is NA, like this. Remember, I told you R represents numeric values by NAs. So if it's NA, then R should put what? Let's put a condition. If it's NA, R should put the mean. So if I want to put a mean, it's very simple. Then I'll simply say what? Data is equal to mean into brackets the mean of the what? This particular column, the age. So if I don't know I don't know the mean value, that's why I'm trying to calculate it. So I say mean to brackets data $age, comma, then I have to ignore the NAs. If not, R will not be able to do the calculation. Since there are missing values, I have to tell R to ignore the missing values and calculate the age for the mean age. So NA.remove is equal to what? True. Okay. Now, what I'm telling R is that if the value is unknown, R should put what? The mean age, which we are calculating using this formula here. If not, R should maintain the initial what? Age value. Or I could put, R should put maybe 30. If I want, I could put 20. If the mean age is missing, put what? This particular value. If not, put 30. It's up to me. Or I will tell R to maintain what was there. If it's a missing value, put the mean age. If not, put what was there. So if I want to tell R to put what was there, then I say data $age. And I'm done. Let's run this, and you'll see the magic. You realize that for age, patient number 8 and then patient number 10, they had missing values. I will now put what? The mean age there. So let's run this. And now if I should print my data set, let's look at patient number 8. Patient number 8, R has actually replaced its missing value by what? The mean. Now let's look at this same replacement, but this time around it will have to do with what? A categorical variable like status. So how do we tell R to replace, for instance, all missing status values by, let's say, positive? Okay, all the patients with unknown diagnostic status, R should put positive. How do we do that? It's very, very simple. Let me show you how. So we would say data. So we simply say data $status. We are selecting the variable status is equal to if else. Okay, then we put into brackets. Then we put the condition is that if status is unknown. So we say data $status, okay, is equal to, remember I told you that R usually represents for categorical entities or data unit. R puts what? Space to denote missing values. So we say, you see, notice how I wrote the equal to, I put double equal signs. So if data status, so if the patient diagnostic status is unknown, it's just space. So you say two quotations to stand for space. If it's just a space, then R should put positive. I'm trying to sound American. Positive, okay. Else, then we put comma, R should maintain what was there. So probably we just initially we did not know that probably diagnostic was delayed, okay, for these particular patients. So we did not know their diagnostic status, but finally the test results showed that these people are actually all positive. All the missing diagnostic status, we should put positive this time around. So we just put positive. Else R should maintain what? Data, the initial value or the initial status, data $status. Then we close our brackets. Let's run this and see the magic. So you see that, for instance, for patient number 3, I will actually say patient number 7 and what? Patient number 11, I will actually say they are positive. Okay, now let's print our data set. Patient number 3, 7, and then what? 12, or was it 11? Okay. Now, R is saying these people are actually positive, as you can see. Okay. So, it's this kind of replacement that I am talking about. Now, we could have done other forms of replacement involving categorical variables, but it's just a similar thing. Okay, if you want to say, for instance, replace all patients that have diagnosis status as positive by negative, you could do that by simply putting, instead of space here, we can just let me copy and paste, and then I'm trying to show you all the possibilities. Okay, so if I want to say replace all patients that are positive, let me read my data set to do away with the changes so that we can start afresh. Then print my data set just to show you the initial data set, and then we do these changes that I'm talking about. So I could say if the patient's diagnostic status is unknown, okay, this is the first condition here. So these are missing values. Or if the patient is actually negative. So if I want to say if the patient diagnostic status is unknown, or if the patient's is tested positive, I should put what? Negative. If I want to do that, then how would the condition be? So I'll simply say if this is this and what? So no, or, so remember I told you or is what? This one, this particular sign here, the straight hyphen, I don't know its name, this particular sign. So if the patient diagnosis status is unknown, or if the patient is tested negative, for instance, or data $status is actually equal to negative, then I should say he's positive. Maybe I just try to, if not, let me still minimize it, and I'll go down. If I don't have enough space, I'll go down to write the rest. So, or if this one is equal to, let's say, negative, if the patient is negative, so put negative. R should put that the patient is positive. So what we are simply trying to tell R, let me go down so that we see the code. This is code that I've just entered here. I'm telling R that if within my data set for the variable status, if the patient's diagnostic status is unknown, like patient number 3, or this is all here, if the status is negative, because probably the test results initially told us that the patients were actually negative, but we later discovered that all patients who were negative were actually positive. So for patients whose diagnosis status is unknown, with their results are now out indicating that they are actually positive. Patients who were actually negative initially, the results are now showing that they are actually positive. So if the patient's diagnosis status was not known, or the diagnosis status was negative, R should put what these patients are actually positive. If not, R should maintain their initial diagnostic status. This is what it means here. Now if I should run this, okay, this is perfectly well. Now let's print our data set, and you see that R will put all the patients who were negative will now be positive, and then R will put also positive for patients with missing values, missing diagnostic status. That's exactly what R has done here. Positive for everybody except, so you see, so that marks the end of replacement of several values or missing values within a particular column. Okay, now we've covered that part. Good. We move on to the last thing that we will do, which has to do with replacing all missing values by a specific data value. Okay, or we could replace by the mean, for instance, you know, using the for loop command. Okay, so let's do that one. So the last part of our tutorial has to do with replacing sorry, I'm trying to, we're actually going to look at what replacement of replacing NAs in all rows or columns. Replacing NAs, that's missing values. Okay, NAs in all rows, replacing missing values in all rows or columns, or if you want in the entire data set. Okay, all NAs in the entire data set or in all rows or columns. So how do we do that? So to do this, let me read our data set once again to R to do away with the changes that we've done, because I always want to start afresh so that we can see all the missing values, and then we see how we can solve the problem. So let's actually print my data set once again. This is my data set with what, a lot of missing values, but this time around we are interested in replacing all NAs. So these NAs, it could be weight, it could be age. All that we are interested in doing is to replace all these NAs by what? A particular value of our choice. It could be the mean age or the mean weight, or it could be just any number of our choice. But we just want to tell R that within this particular data set, all patients with missing values, please put this particular value. Note that since we are talking about NAs here, it means categorical variables are excluded here. We are not talking about diagnostic status, but that one is a space, not NA. NAs are actually missing values for only numeric variables like age or what, weight, for instance. So we want R to do this replacement. It's very, very simple. So to do this, we actually tell R to replace all these NAs that you see here, NA here, NA here. Let's tell R to replace it by, let's say, 5 or 10 or 20. How do we do that? So to do this kind of replacement, we can use the for loop command. Okay, So you can say, for instance, for the for loop, if you want to, let me say using for loop, okay. So how do we do that? So we can simply say for into, then we open brackets, then we say I stands for integer, I guess. Okay, in, let's say 1, then we put column 1 to the nth column. Okay, so we are trying to tell R that, assuming R is an integer, okay, R could take, I here could take any value from the first column to the nth column. So if we, in our case, we have 5 columns. So if instead of n column here, I could have kept 5. Okay, I could have kept 5 here, but just say nth column. Just imagine you have a very, just whatever. So it's to say the nth column from the first column to the last column. Any column number, I stands for any column number starting from the first column to the nth column. Okay, then of what? Then we put of our data set. What's the name of my data set? I call it data with capital D, of my data set. Then we use the I don't know what we called it, this brackets. Is this brackets? Please let me know. I've forgotten. We have, is it current bracket? I've forgotten anyway. Let's go on. We have square brackets. I've forgotten this name of the bracket. Please let me know in the comment section. I've forgotten. I'm tired maybe. Then I'll put this, sorry, but the data, we have named my data set data, so I'll say data here. Then I'll use square brackets, and I'll put comma, and I'll put I here is still talking about our column. Remember, whenever you are selecting a particular column and you use the square bracket, you could use the $sign to select a column, but when you are using the square bracket, and anything that you put, anything that comes after the comma is the row, anything after the comma is what, the column. So we are selecting the ith column, okay, from the first to what, the last column. So we are saying I is an integer within which could take any of the column numbers from the first column to the nth column or the 5th column. Now it's the same thing, almost the same thing that we are saying. We are selecting data here, the ith column. So it could be the first column, second column, till the 5th column. You understand? And now let's open another square bracket. Then we will tell R that if is NA. So if is dot NA. Okay. Then we put into brackets data. Then we put square brackets once again. We put comma, the ith column. We are selecting always the ith column here. Then we close the brackets. And we also close our square brackets. And then we equate this to what the value that we want. Okay, so we are saying that if it is NA, that's what we are talking about here. If the value is missing, is NA here, then R should put what? Let's say 20. So we put equal to 20. And then we have to close what? Our curly brackets or whatever. And then if I should run this, you realize that all these missing values here, like NA, arrow put what? 20. So this is a quick way of using a for loop. You can actually replace all missing value within your data set by a particular value of your choice. But the question you ask me is, why will we want to replace even age missing values and weight missing values by the same value? I don't know. For this context, it might not make sense, but I'm trying to share with you because you may need it in your case. Okay, Now I've run my for loop code, nothing, no error. If I should show my data set, you see that all NAs will be replaced by 20. As you can see, all NAs have been replaced by what? 20. And this marks the end of our tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe. Bye.